most common question I get from new players is some version of, what army should I start? And honestly, the way most people answer the question is kind of terrible. They either tell you to pick the strongest army in the current meta or the easiest one to paint. And I can tell you from very personal, very expensive experience that both these answers can lead you down the completely wrong path. I made the mistake of buying 3 armies before I found the one that worked for me. Tyranids first, loved the look, hated how they played. Leagues of Votann second, got a good deal, struggled with the painting, liked the playstyle, but didn't enjoy putting them on the table. And then Necrons third. And that's when it finally clicked. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the easiest, but because they matched who I am as a player and matched my skills as a hobbyist. So today, I'm going to ask you the questions that would have saved me a lot of money and headache if someone asked me them before I opened my first box. By the end of the video, you should have some sense of which army is right for you, and it might surprise you. Before we get into the questions, I want to ask you to do one thing. Put down whatever army you currently think you want just for a couple of minutes. So here's the truth about the wrong reasons to pick an army. Don't pick one because your buddy plays it. Don't pick one because it's winning tournaments right now. Don't pick one because someone on YouTube told you it's the best. And don't pick one just because it's cheap. And don't pick one because it's the easiest to paint either. Every single one of those reasons can lead you to an army you end up resenting. And Warhammer isn't a hobby you finish in a weekend. You're going to spend months building, painting, playing, transporting, and looking at these miniatures. The army you choose still has to excite you after your 50th model painted and your 50th game played. That's the standard. Not what's winning this month. Okay, so let's get into the questions. Question 1. How many models do you actually want to paint? This sounds like a boring question, but I promise it's the most important one. Because there's a massive difference between painting 20 custodians and painting 120 orc boys. And if you get this wrong, it'll define your entire experience of the hobby. Low model count armies, like Custodes, Grey Knights, Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, give you a small number of individual spectacular models. You can spend a lot of time on each one. You can get your army table ready faster. Transportation is simpler. And the visual impact of even a small painted force is incredible. The trade-off is every model matters enormously on the table. Losing one custodian hurts in a way that losing one orc boy simply doesn't. Low model count armies are less forgiving of mistakes, which is worth thinking about as a newer player. High model count armies, orcs, tyranids, Astra Militarum, Genestealer cults, gives you that epic battle feeling. A painted horde on the table is one of the most impressive sights in the hobby. And they can be more forgiving to play because individual losses matter a little less. The trade-off is time. Painting 100 models, even with a quick scheme, is a serious commitment. I chose Tyranids partially because I loved that horde fantasy, and then realized the sheer volume of painting required was more than I bargained for. So be honest with yourself about how much time you're actually willing to sit at the painting desk. Ask yourself this. When you imagine your finished army, are you picturing 20 elite warriors that look like masterpieces, or are you picturing a tide of bodies swarming across the board? That instinct will tell you a lot about the direction you belong. Question 2. What excites you visually? This question sounds obvious, but people underestimate how much the visual identity of an army matters long term. You're going to be painting these models for months. You need to genuinely love how they look. Do you love big monsters? Like Tyranids, Chaos Demons, Necrons with their Satan shards? All of these have enormous centerpiece models that dominate the table and make opponents nervous. The Norn Emissary, Be'lakor, the Silent King. If you get to see those models, you feel something that matters. Do you love tanks and vehicles? Imperial Guard, playing the parking lot lists? Chaos Demons using the monsters, Space Marine armored columns. There's a whole category of player who gets excited by a Leman Russ or a Land Raider way more than an infantry model. If that's you, vehicle-heavy armies are going to keep you engaged in ways that pure infantry forces won't. Do you love heroic warriors or individual characters? Custodes, Grey Knights, Dark Angels? Every model in these armies feels like a named character with a story. If you find yourself wanting to name each model and build backstories for them, those low model count elite armies are certainly worth your time. Do you love gothic, corrupted, or alien aesthetics? Chaos has something for every kind of darkness. The plague-rotted Death Guard, the psychedelic Thousand Sons, the berserker World Eaters, and Xenos factions like Eldari and Drukhari and Necrons all have visual identities completely unlike anything in the Imperium. What gave you that initial feeling when you first saw Warhammer? Whatever gave you that initial feeling when you first saw Warhammer, that's worth listening to. I got into this hobby through Total War Warhammer, and I fell in love with the setting visually before I understood a single rule. That instinct was correct. Question 3. How much do you actually like painting? This is a question people are least honest with themselves about, and it costs them the most money. If you hate painting, or you're just getting started and find it intimidating, that's completely fine. Before you factor into your army choice, picking an army with 100 detailed models when you're struggling to finish 10 is a recipe for a shelf full of gray plastic that makes you feel guilty every time you walk past it. I have Leagues of Votann army that still haunts me for this exact reason. If painting isn't your thing, or you're a newer painter who wants to build confidence, look into low model count armies with a forgiving paint scheme. Custodes, Necrons, Imperial Knights, large flat surfaces, metallic schemes that hide imperfections, and fewer models to get through before you have something table ready. I chose Necrons partially because of Sautek Dynasty scheme, that lead belcher, green, black, something I knew I could execute and be proud of. If you love painting and you want a project that challenges and rewards you, then lean into armies with incredible detail. Black Templars, Thousand Sons, Eldari, Sisters of Battle, these armies are a painter's dream. The gem effects of Eldari, the ornate gold on Sisters, the corruption detail on every Chaos model. If your eyes light up with that kind of work, those armies will keep you engaged at the painting desk in ways that simpler schemes won't. I have a full painting difficulty tier list video on the channel if you want more detailed breakdown by faction. A link will be in the description. Question 4. How competitive do you want to be? Be honest with yourself about this one, because it affects everything from which army you pick from and how you build your list. If you're a casual player who wants to have fun games at your local game store and doesn't care about winning tournaments, that's a completely valid way to play, and it opens up your army choices significantly. Just pick one you love. Play what excites you. Enjoy the hobby without worrying about whether the list is optimized. If you're someone who eventually wants to play in leagues and tournaments and measure yourself competitively, it's also completely valid. That was my goal heading into 11th. But here's an important caveat. Do not chase the meta as a new player. The rules change every few months. The strongest army in January is average by June. If you buy an army specifically because it's winning tournaments right now, you will spend a lot of money and end up with models that you don't actually love when the balance shifts. I've talked about this in my mistakes video, and I stand by every word. Pick an army you enjoy, learn it deeply. A player who understands their army inside and out will always outperform someone who's bought the meta army 3 weeks ago. Your skill development is more valuable long term than whatever's winning this month. Question 5. What playstyle suits you? Now, we're getting into the actual game, because different armies play completely differently, and finding a playstyle you enjoy is just as important as finding models you love to paint. Do you love melee? Getting across the board and hitting things until they stop moving? World Eaters, Blood Angels, Black Templar, Emperor's Children, and Space Wolves? All of these are built around that close combat aggression. And with 11th edition expanding the engagement range to 2 inches and buffing melee across the board, this is an exciting time to play a melee army. Do you love shooting? Sitting back, controlling the board at ranged, and dismantling your opponent before they can close the distance? Tau are the purest expression of this. Their entire identity is firepower. Astra Militarum with their artillery and tank columns. Necrons with their long-range firepower and reanimation protocols. If you want to make your opponent come close to you rather than chasing them around a board, shooting armies are your home. Do you love fast armies? Units that cover the board in a single turn, striking from unexpected angles, and are never where your opponent expects? White Scars, Drukhari, Eldari, Blood Angels with jump packs. Speed is a playstyle in itself, and it creates some of the most exciting moments in the game when it works. Do you love durability? Typically play tanks? Units that refuse to die no matter what your opponent throws at them? Necrons again with their reanimation protocols, Custodes with their 4-up invulse, Death Guard who are slow but almost impossible to remove? If you find satisfaction in weathering a storm and still being on the board at the end, look at tough armies that reward patience. Do you love psychic powers and tricks? Thousand Suns and Grey Knights are your answer. Both are deeply psychic armies with mechanics that reward planning and knowledge of the rules. Thousand Suns especially have some of the most unique interactions in the game and are rewarding to pilot once you understand them. And if you want a mix of everything, a balanced army that can adapt to whatever's in front of you, Space Marines are genuinely the best starting point in the game for a reason. They're not the best at any one thing, but they can do everything reasonably well, which makes them excellent for learning the full range of game mechanics. Question 6. What's your budget approach? I'm not going to tell you any army is cheap. Warhammer 40k is an expensive hobby, and pretending otherwise is going to do you a disservice. But there's a meaningful difference between armies in terms of how much you need to spend to have a playable force. Low model count armies like Custodes and Knights cost more per model, but you need much fewer of them. A playable Custodes force can be surprisingly achievable because you don't need that many boxes. High model count armies like Guard or Orcs cost less per model, but you need a lot more of them, which can add up to a much higher total. The most important budget advice I can give you is this. Go in with a plan. I've spent a significant amount of money over 3 armies, partially because I kept buying without one. With a clear roadmap, you can build a solid 2,000 point army for around $1,000 MSRP. Without one, you can spend twice as much on models that don't work together. I've got a full video of the real cost of a 40k army on this channel if you'd like to check it out. Let me answer all these questions for myself and show you how it works in practice. How many models do you want to paint? Fewer. I wanted to paint fewer with individual impact. I'm not a horde player. I want each model to matter. So that ruled out Tyranids and Guard pretty quick. Or it should have before I bought the Tyranid army. Lesson learned. What excites me visually? Ancient undying civilizations, metallic aesthetic, imposing centerpiece models. I have a gold, green, and metal scheme, so that points clearly to Necrons. I also love that Necromancer fantasy type, so that helped a lot. How much do I like painting? I like it, but I'm still developing my skills. I needed a scheme I could execute well and be proud of, rather than one that would expose every mistake. So that flat metallic panels and a simple color approach, Necrons fit that again. How competitive do I want to be? I want to eventually play in tournaments, but I knew I needed to learn the game properly first. I needed an army with clear mechanics I could master, rather than something complex that would overwhelm me while I was still learning the fundamentals. What playstyle suits me? I like durable and patience. I like units that force my opponent to commit fully or risk them standing back up. The reanimation protocols, one of my favorite mechanics in the game. Matches that Necromancer fantasy type that I love, gives me that durable tank playstyle that I play in every other RPG. So this lined up perfectly for me. The answer of all of those questions brought me to Necrons. And not because they were the strongest or cheapest or easiest, but because they matched who I am as a player. So here are my personal recommendations based on everything we've covered. If you're brand new and you want to learn the game without being punished for every mistake, Space Marines or Necrons. Both are forgiving, both are well supported, and both have room to grow in any direction. If you love painting and want a project that truly challenges you, Black Templars, Thousand Sons, or Eldari, these armies reward the time you put into them at the painting desk in a way that simpler schemes can't quite match. If you want the most visually spectacular experience on the table, regardless of anything else, Tyranids, Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, nothing else quite matches a fully painted horde or a towering knight striding across the battlefield. But honestly, and I mean this, every army in the game suits someone perfectly. The beauty of 40k is that there's no objectively wrong choice if you're choosing for the right reasons. The Sisters player who told me I put them in the wrong tier was right. For them, Sisters are the perfect army. For me, they'd be a nightmare. And that's the whole point. So, what army did you land on? Drop it in the comments. I would actually like to know. And I read every single comment. If you want to go deeper on any of this, I've got a painting difficulty tier list, a play difficulty tier list, a full cost breakdown video, and individual army build guides on this channel. Between all of those, you should have everything you need to make a smart decision before you spend a single dollar. And if you've already made your choice and you're second guessing it, go back through those questions honestly. The army that answers all of them is your army. Trust that. If you don't mind, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.